The more unsure and timid somebody is, the less likelihood somebody will trust that person. Any timid person, I automatically just assume doesn't know anything.
So we've been talking about freelancing lately and renting versus buying. So I've decided to go down the rental route in freelance. How do I figure out how to price that out when giving it to a client?
You've decided to go down the rental route and freelance. So you're going to rent equipment. You're not going to own it, and you're going to rent it for a client. So then you would go on to whatever rental house or rental website you would rent it from. You would rent it, and then you'd probably mark it up like 20%. So if everything cost you $300, then you'd mark it up 20%, right? So maybe it's $360. However, I don't ever itemize anything for clients. Now, there are some productions, again, if you're going to be a cog in somebody's wheel, they want to have a line item for everything. If you're just going to be a camera operator for somebody, or if you're going to do everything yourself, or you're not working for an agency that cares about every line item, just assume, oh, yeah, I'm going to need a camera, so a couple lenses, this. Go on Lens Rentals or one of those websites, figure that out. And a lot of times, hey, it's $1,500 all day, all in, right? Like that includes all gear. They don't have to know that you're renting it. They don't have to know how much it costs. Either they are willing to pay you $1,500 per day with your gear, or they're not, right? Anytime people try to start like nickel and diming you, number one, like they're trying to make your job harder, because typically you're getting the gear that you know that you need to do the job well. And then that's why I don't like line iteming anything, especially if they don't know a lot about either production in general or about that role. Why do you need this? Why do you need this? Can we cut this? Right? So when you don't show them anything, then they have nothing to pick apart. And it's simply, this is what it takes to do the job. I personally don't do anything for clients that will try to dictate what tools I use to do the job.
So an invoice that could say, your day rate includes labor, camera package, all in one, is generally successful.
If I was going to invoice somebody as a camera operator, or even a DP, they would get an invoice with one line item that said DP rate and gear. That's it. Like the gear doesn't matter. To some people it will, and there's going to be people like, well, I only work for people and it matters, and I have to line item everything and put how much it costs. Cool. That is very much the thing in a lot of different realms, but at least in the corporate side, right? And even non-corporate side, like I'll do, work for documentaries and stuff. They'll say, hey, how much for you and your gear? And I'll, $3,000. Okay. And if they can't swing it, we thought, we were hoping to get everything all in for like $2,500. Cool. Right? Like they don't care how it's divvied up. They just want to stay under their budget. And so that's at least how I look at things. And also, I quote, my day rates are high, but at the same time, when you say a number that is typically over what they would do, they will typically then rebut you with, well, our max is, versus you starting low. And they're like, oh, we got a deal on this guy, right? Or, you just don't know why you're not, you don't know how much you can say. So when you say low, they're never going to say, oh, well, we were prepared to give you $2,500, but for $1,200, we'll take that every day and twice on Sunday.
Do you ever have projects where you would give maybe two versions of a price? I know in the past I've done stuff where I've said, oh, well, the full in all package would be $2,000, for example, and that includes the whole day of shooting and all of the editing and yada yada. Or a mid-level price where I'll just do the shooting and then give you the footage. Does that come up often for you?
We literally just got a contract with a client who they asked for 3 different things, and they're the ones that ask for this type of quote, which is one of you shooting and editing everything, one of you shooting it and just handing off the footage, you don't edit anything, and then one of if we forego 2 days and only do 1 day, right? How much would that be? So give them those numbers, and they went for the shooting and editing. And I mean, for reference, it's a 1.5 day shoot, right? And it's 2 edits, and it's $13,500. And so if that sounds crazy to some people, it's like, well, once you've gotten your reps in and you've established yourself, what companies are paying for is they know it's going to be done right the first time. There's no question of, is it going to be done right? Whoever the talent is, are we wasting their time? Is it going to take too long? If we're shutting down factory floors, right? Is the loss of $10,000 for that factory floor to be shut down for 30 minutes worth, am I going to go in there and get it done right within 30 minutes, or somebody else not even going to have their camera set up in 30 minutes, right? So all those things are what allows somebody to charge more than others. And I think there's even people who were like, oh yeah, that's cute. 13,500. I charged 100,000, right? You have all of us have mental barriers to what we think is possible, right? And I don't think that I can't charge a lot more, which I definitely do and have. But there's lots of reasons why we can do the same job for the same person, and me charge 8 times more than you, because I have a confidence of where I've been. And I think another thing is that companies and people can smell desperation of anytime you're unsure. Well, I could do it this way, or whatever you think. Cool, not going to hire you. You're not confident. You don't know anything. You want the job, which means if you want the job, it means that you don't have that much money, which means that you're probably not successful, which means that I probably can't trust you, because if you were successful, you would be having lots of jobs and make lots of money. So the more unsure and timid somebody is especially in this industry, but I would say any industry ever, the less likelihood somebody will trust that person. Any timid person, I automatically just assume doesn't know anything, because they typically don't, because anybody, car salesman, uncertainty. Guess what? Almost every car person that goes to buy a used car, when they're doing research, knows more about that car than the salesman does. But the salesman's job is to have enough conviction in what he's doing and not come off cocky, right? But just be confident enough for you to say, okay, I trust that you didn't make the car, but am I going to be taken care of on this? I feel like I am, right? So just a quick little blurb about that.
Yeah. So would you say that confidence in your presentation of a higher price speaks more than your resume, for example, or your experience, or do you still need to have the experience to back up the fact that you're asking for a higher price, assuming you're confident enough in your abilities to ask for that higher price?
Nobody cares about your resume, especially in the corporate world. Maybe they do in TV and film. In the corporate space, right? Nobody cares about your resume. They don't have time to go through your resume. If on my website I have 3 examples of videos, if they look professional, it looks like something that they would put out, that's all they care about. There's no resume. There's no, here's a whole portfolio. There's no reels. Nobody has ever asked for a reel. I've never sent anybody a reel, reels. I made one at one point in 2018, and it's fun to have for myself, but absolutely no company cares, because a reel doesn't tell you anything. Here's some pretty images, right? Versus here's a brand story that is what you're looking for. give me an example of you being able to tell a corporation story without it being boring, right? That's what's going to sell. And the only way to do that and the only way to get confidence in all this is just to go out there and do those things. No matter how much stuff that you do for yourself or your friends, if it looks like you didn't do it for an actual business or company, and it's not a company that is near their size, you're going to have a harder time, feeling confident or selling them, because it takes the same level of skill set to do a nice video for a mom and pop shop versus a really a big one, a big corporation. But it's just, this guy has only done videos for his local coffee shop. Like, it's going to be hard for you to feel confident in asking for something. And it's also going to look like, he hasn't done much. And I don't know if he's worth that.
Is there a certain point, though, where you kind of have to take the leap and go for those bigger clients? If you've only had some smaller local businesses, mom and pops, so far in your career, and you're ready to take that leap, even if maybe your examples don't show that you can do that, but you feel like, is that where confidence takes over?
If you feel like you are a competent person, then yeah, you should go try to get everything. I think where a lot of people don't understand what is required is, can you set up a good looking interview within 5 to 8 minutes? Like, let's assume your gear's out and unpacked. And the reason I say like 5 to 8 minutes is because I can't tell you how many times with, Fortune 500 companies, we set up in the approved location. We have their person, the project manager, on location. CEO, C-suite, somebody shows up. I actually want to do it over here. We're going to say no. He's going to say, well, I don't care what you say. Like, I'm paying for this. You're going to go over here. And then you have to be able to swing an entire setup into another really good looking setup in 5 minutes, because you only have them for 15 minutes. And I've done that, I would say, 40% of the time. And it doesn't matter. It's not planning, because this is literally with their internal company, and they're always like stressed out, right? And so being competent and capable of making changes on the fly, because what if you were in a place where it's like kind of dark, and now you're going to a place where there's a bunch of windows, and like, okay, how am I going to compensate for that? And if you're trying to dial in settings and stuff and you can't get it right within a very short period of time, you're like, just wait. That's how you never get brought back. And then that's how you burn bridges before you're right. So like, you need to just be very fast and efficient and good at making things look good with very minimal tools.
Well, thanks. I know we got to get going.
Cool.